Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Meggi Rombach. And I'm so excited because this is the whole purpose of the podcast, to talk about finding your peace and your purpose. And so we are going to explore that. She is very, very accomplished. And so without further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Fantastic. It's such a pleasure to being here on your podcast. So yes, my name is Meggi Rombach, and you said it very well. So well done. So I have a long-standing career in big corporate mostly. So I was first in Procter Gamble in marketing, and then for the last 14 years in the Red Cross. And I already started my side hustle at the side. And I know you're talking mostly to entrepreneurs. So I haven't been an entrepreneur until recently, but I was always an intrapreneur. So I was always kind of trying to push something new forward inside. So I did reach what I call my Everest base camp, so a fairly decent level of seniority. But I did that at a cost of, I burned out twice, was on sick leave, so I hit a wall, and that really made me stop and pause and redirect. And that's what I'm on now, which I call the mindful rebellion, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
We are. So I was literally having a conversation with someone yesterday about burnout. So they've been doing what they've been doing for, I would say, probably 25 years. And they're tired, and the industry is much different than it was even just a year ago. And so to try to, when it's a commission-based job and you don't get paid unless you close deals, it's tiring at times. And there's a lot of up and down. And so we were talking, and she's like, Charisse, I don't even know what I want to do anymore. I don't know if I'm supposed to go towards what you talked about, like a nonprofit, help women, or do all these other things. And so as we were talking, it just prompted me with what you do, because you had that burnout. You built up this, like I'd say the C-suite type positions, the executive positions, and then you had health issues, which I hear so often. I had the same thing, the stress that just takes a toll on your body. And so you decide, I need to do something else. And so how do you help women who are in this like limbo type thing figure out the next step?
So there are two steps to it, I would say. So for listeners that might know Simon Sinek, so he's all about, it's not about what you do, it's why you do it. And so my new line is not about what you do, but how you do it. Because I use this analogy of Everest Base Camp. So I compare it to, many of us make it to Everest Base Camp. And that by itself, that's at 4,000 meters. I don't know what that's in feet, but it's really high. So not everybody makes it there. So first of all, I think often it's important to accomplish how far we've come. But then once you're there, we face the question, what do we want to do next? Do we want to summit, which means probably even more stress, even more pressure? Do we want to stay at level, but manage it differently? Or do we want to do something completely different? And I don't think everybody wants to do something completely different. I think people need to get clear what's actually the issue, and then where do I want to go? And that's where the how comes in, because I gotten, after my burnout and my health turns, really into mindfulness, but also not only mindfulness in the sense of you meditate to be more zen, but also really towards more flow and high performance. It's such a powerful tool. So I'm convinced that if we don't really go to the root cause of why we're unhappy, we might also jump a career we actually love. So sometimes all we need to do, and I know it's not at all easy, is to become clearer on our boundaries, become clearer on when we say stop, and basically flourish more in what we already do. And for many people, that's what they actually need. And then, of course, some people might just really have had completely enough. And then it's even harder to find what's next and really go a bit soul searching on where to go next. And there are many ways to go about this too. Maybe I just pause here for now and I let you come with the next.
Yeah. So as you talk, like there's several people that come to mind as you talk about the different scenarios, because I know one person, he or she hates his life and just feels trapped because they make a ton of money, but hates what he does every single day. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a he, right? And it's not my husband. He loves what he does. And so I think that's the part is, at what point do you feel like Okay, yeah, I make a lot of money, but what's the trade-off? Happiness. I know some people that they made a ton of money and they sold everything and they moved into this tiny little place that they rented and had no furniture, nothing. They put a card table together and said, okay, they looked at each other as husband and wife and said, what are we going to do next? What do we want?
So that really resonates, and it reminded me of my first part of my career at Procter Gamble, because that was really a golden cage, if you will. I mean, I wouldn't say I made a small pile of money. I wouldn't become a millionaire, but we had a really decent salary, we had very good benefits, but also really high work hard, party hard. It was just on such a high level. And that's when I had my first burnout. And that made me realize that was amazing in many ways. You're working with smart people, but for me, this whole making lots of money side of thing was not my main driver. So
Right.
that's when I changed into the humanitarian sector. But the whole transition actually took me 2 years, because I went back to university, but also I spent quite some time what I now call transferable skills. And I work with many people on their transferable skills to really look at what can I bring from my marketing background into the human sector where I don't have to start completely from scratch and I can build on my skills. So for listeners, that's the first place where I would start, is really find out, reconnect with the passion and what we really want to do. And then to start looking, what do I already have that I can use for a new direction? That doesn't always need to be completely radical.
Right. Well, and then I want to caution and tell me if you agree that this is where this side of your brain, I forgot what is it, the amygdala, that it starts to try to protect you. And so it's like, you know what, you're not going to be good at that, or it's not going to, and like finish that sentence, right? And so it's just that side of your brain starts to try to protect you. So all these negative thoughts are going to come in your head versus, and so I would caution, like, as you're talking about your transferable skills, as you're talking about what can I take from this industry to this industry, don't judge anything that you say. Like, just throw it out there and just start brainstorming. Like, that's one of the rules with brainstorming. You can't judge, you just throw everything out. Because if you do, then you start whittling away all these things that are really powerful that you could take to a different industry.
Absolutely. Like, let the judge at home
Yeah.
be open and try out. I've become really a big fan of an agile approach. Like, even try things small at the side. I mean, I also have a podcast and I started it next to my job because it was fun. I did it at the beginning once a month. And when I started, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was really building it slowly. I was flying the plane as I was building it. And yes, the first episodes, they're a bit crappy, but if you're vulnerable and you don't attach to that, that allows you to explore. And similar things people can do when they want to change their career. Just volunteer somewhere and try if that resonates, or do something during the holidays, or little things that give a better sense if that's intuitive. I think it's really important to reconnect with our intuition, because often we're so much in our heads. And I think it's really important that we reconnect what our gut feeling is telling us. And in order to do that, we have to do it. Else we just overthink it. So we have to expose ourselves a little bit to put the foot into the water and say, like, how does this feel? And then we can adjust and adapt and maybe do something different, but at least we're learning on the way.
I agree. And taking a step, like putting your foot in that water. So I've really thought for my personal self, because as an entrepreneur, you have several balls up in the air. Like I think I have 12 and it's too much. And it started to get to the point. I look at the last 6 months, what I've accomplished, which is nothing that I'm happy to report because, well, if I focus more time on this and I don't do this, well, if I do this and I don't do this, and pretty soon I'm not doing anything. And so this year, I don't make New Year's resolutions. It's like, what do I want to accomplish? Where do I want to be? And so yesterday I sat down because I'm writing book 2 of this book and I'm like one chapter away from being done. Okay. I put it off for like 9 months. And in one day, I was able to at least get the framework and write everything for each chapter. And so that's the thing too, is taking that step, putting your foot in the water, forget everything else, accomplish this one thing today. And that you're one step closer to the next thing you need to go. And so it's like, okay, well, yeah, now I need to do my real estate, or now I need to do my lending, or today this is what I'm going to focus on because I'm going to be done. I can take it off my plate and now I can do the next thing. And so I think that sometimes we get so caught up in, well, I don't even know what I want to do. Okay, well, do something.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
used to be a runner, and it's like once you hear the gun, you take off. Well, if you just stand on the starting line, you're never going to get anywhere. And so that's something that I love that you said that. So, how do you help people change their mindset? Because, like we talked about, um, that's going to get in your mind and start, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're not good at that. So, how do you help people get started?
So I think one is that the two main things that I see that people need most. So one is really to work on their mindset. And there are many tools that can be used. And it's tools like visualizations.
Mhm.
There's a whole piece of work around. I'm not sure if that's a big thing. Sophrology, which was similar. It works with similar things like visualization, and not in this kind of a bit like woo-woo thing, like I just visualize and things will happen. Actually, I'm just reading a book by a medical doctor who really looks at the neuroscience of that, because basically what visualization helps you with is focus.
Mhm.
Because the more you're clear on what you want and the more often you repeat it to yourself, it first of all gets into your subconscious, and your brain will make you spot opportunities more in that space because it knows where you want to focus on. So in order to do that, first you really have, I mean, there's a model used, it comes from Japan, and it's used a lot in coaching. It's called Ikigai. I don't know if you heard about that.
Mhm.
It's basically a craft that looks at what you're good at, what you love doing, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And the Ikigai is really at the sweet spot of all of this. Because sometimes we're good at it, we get paid for it, and the world needs it, but actually we don't love it. Ideally you're really at the sweet spot. So it's good to already exploring, even like brainstorming, scribbling on a paper and just kind of look at, okay, what am I good at? And just start mapping it out and also looking for where the discrepancies are. And then to really kill that inner critique. And how to do that? It works a lot with simple things like affirmations. It sounds stupid, but just to tell yourself, I'm good at that, or just to repeat that to yourself often enough that already you also catch the negative thoughts when they come. I mean, just to say, like, okay, that's just a thought. I mean, I don't need to believe that. So it's really this, and that's what the mindfulness inspired work comes in. And then also really practically around habits and action, to start small, as you said, one habit or one thing at a time, and stick with it for long enough to get to a point where it's like, okay, that's covered,
Yeah.
and then move to the next thing. Because often, especially with New Year's resolutions, the issue is we have some really big goals and ideas, and they're just overwhelming. And then we get so intimidated by it that we don't even start.
Yeah, it's like I know someone, I want to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to lose 50 pounds by June. I'm like, great, that's a great goal. What's your plan? Well, I'm just going to lose 50 pounds. But what's your plan? Because if you eat your hot tamales every single day, like I do, with your handful, it's not going to get there, right? And so it's making sure that if you set that goal, it's the baby steps. The baby steps are really, to me, what's important at this point. Because if you're never taking the baby steps, legit, there's a goal that I've had for, and we're going to go on 6 years now. And I haven't accomplished it yet. And why? Because I haven't taken those baby steps to get there. I haven't sat down and mapped it out and said, okay, how am I going to get there doing this? And so it's like, all right, you know what? Focus on the little things. Absolutely.
And you know, you mentioned before you're a runner. I don't know what type of running you've done. I'm a runner too. I mean, a bit less now, but I've run several half marathons and one full marathon, probably
Yep.
the one and only ever. But you know, I love sport analogies. I love all sorts of analogies. But you know, when you look at running, you don't run a half marathon overnight. It's similar. You have to show up regularly, and you start small. You start with a few kilometers or miles and you build up over time. And at one point, you run the half marathon. So I think for work or business or everything in life, you got to break it down and then you got to stick to it little by little.
I laugh because the marathon that I ran, I actually kept injuring my legs because
Oh,
I was a little too heavy. I think I've lost a lot of weight since. But my physical therapist said, don't train anymore, Charisse, just go do it. And I'm like, you as a physical therapist are telling me to do that? That is horrible advice. And as my legs started to break down again, I did. Like the most I'd ever run was 4 miles. And One time was a 10K, so that was my 6 miles. But any other time, I had only run 4 miles. And then I did go out and run that marathon. And let me tell you, the mindset was everything because the body, mile 20, my husband's like, you're almost done, 2 more miles. And I'm like, no, it's 6. He's like, what? But the mindset gets you there. And the thing was, I had a why and nothing was going to let me down. And so because of that, it's like, starting even to what's your why? Is it that you want to find more peace? Do you want to find purpose? Do you want to make a difference in someone's life? Do you not like the life you have? Do you want more time with your kids? Like, what is your why? And once that happens, like, there is nothing that was going to stop me. If I ended up having to crawl to the finish line, which I didn't, but had I been able to like do the 5 miles and the 10 miles and then the 15 miles and 20, it would have been a much faster. But that's where a coach comes in, right?
But
Because
you did it anyway, and that's
I know,
amazing, you know?
but
And as you say, mindset is with most of things, in the end, the biggest difference is the mindset, what
it is.
how much you want to do it, how much you tell yourself I can't do it, and then you just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Had it been even 1 or 2 more miles, I don't think my body, I
I
had
would have
stopped
done it.
sweating. I had stopped, like my body was shutting down. It was actually very dangerous. But I think that that's the part is having a coach like you that can talk to somebody or like me that they've been in your shoes, they can see, and then getting to know you and giving you the advice. Like, had I had a training coach for my marathon, I think I could have done much better, right? And so that's the part that making sure that you get the advice and help from somebody who's been there and gone through it. Because
Absolutely.
is that vision 2020 vision? You can see better. Okay, so getting back to let's talk about leadership for a little bit because you have a ton of experience in leadership. And so, what is your advice for entrepreneurs that are just starting a business or have been, but the culture is not right? What is your advice on how to build a culture that is conducive to non-toxic environment?
So, I mean, it all comes down to trust and openness. And, I've been sitting in very senior leadership teams. I mean, I wasn't the top person, but I was working very closely with the top person. And the specific leader I'm thinking about, he was really amazing. He came in from outside into the Red Cross, which is a very closed community. And he was just amazing, but he built it he was very open and vulnerable. He really built it on trust, but he also made teams talk to each other and get to know each other. I mean, I'm a people person, so maybe that's also obvious advice coming from me, but it's just all people work with people. And the more you can make people to really get to know each other and work with each other in a decent way, that's already important. And then I came across a book. It's called Rebel Talent. It's written by a person, called Francesco Dino. She's based in the US somewhere, but she's Italian. And so she wrote that book, Rebel Talent. And Rebel Talent talks about, because often we fear to speak up, we fear to be too loud, or as a leader, we fear to be maybe too pushy. But what she researched is that when people embrace their rebel energy and stand your ground, to mark your boundaries, to speak up, and also for entrepreneurs and founders to encourage the teams to speak up, because actually what that leads to is more innovation, more employee engagement, and more retention because people feel more they're heard, they can contribute. But then, of course, when people speak up, you also have to listen and manage that. So it's a double-sided sword. So then you have to listen enough to make sure that people feel heard, but sometimes as the entrepreneur, you still have to call the shots. So it's a fine line to walk, but that would be some things in terms of leadership. And then there's a concept of servant leadership that I've come across with my manager back at Procter Gamble, and he was just an amazing servant leader. And that whole concept of leading, but from a even serving perspective to really connect with people, I mean, that's also super powerful. And personally, I really believe in that concept.
I do too. And actually, that's the way that I manage because I don't want anyone to ever do something that I would never do. So, for example, and that is in any level of business. So if it means that the toilet is clogged, I'm not going to sit there and wait and tell somebody, well, that's not my job, go get the janitor type thing. I'll unclog the stinking toilet. And so I think that in any type of level that you're at, and especially as a leader, to serve people and make sure that they know that you care about them and that they know that you're valuable to the company and you're making a difference. That's something that, I don't know, the very first boss that I ever had, he truly cared and he was fun to work for. And because of that, like we were able to build this great thing. He was a one-man show starting his business. And hired me, and we had a great time for that summer before I went back to college. But I think that that's the part, that making sure as a leader that you know that people, they're not just a number, that they really do matter.
I really like that. And that reminded me of one of my first bosses. She was in her probably late 50s already back then, and a bit of a grande dame, like quite a character. But she was telling us junior people, like, you treat every person with the equal respect. And it doesn't matter if that's the big boss or if that's the cleaning lady. You know, you just treat everybody with respect, period. And that still sticks with me now, like 20 years later, when I think it's so true and so important. And the other bit that came up, it's actually funny enough, my kid learned that at school here. It's a book, it's called The Four Agreements. It's a guy called Manuel Ruiz, I think. And the Four Agreements, it talks about the four principles from the Toltecs, like the Mexican Native Americans. And it's a bit linked to Buddhism, but it's basically just four agreements of how to operate with other people. But one of them is you treat people how you want to be treated, like some really simple things. And if we start there, that already creates an environment where you can avoid toxicity. And then whoever's been in a toxic environment, and I've been there, often it has to do with people not being seen, with ego, with fear, with maybe fear to lose my position. So I want to backstab you. But it's often, when you start digging, it's often people actually struggling themselves. And that's why somehow this toxicity comes up.
So true. As you were talking about that, I thought about the receptionist that answers the phone. I call them the gatekeeper, because if you don't get through the receptionist, you're not going to get to who you want to be. And it's gotten to the point, and I've worked with this company for years, but when she answers the phone and she's like, this is, well, it doesn't matter. This is Anne. And I'm like, hey, Anne, is Sherry available? And so she knows exactly who I am because of how I respond to her. Right. And so she never has to ask, who is this? Like, she knows because of how I always address her by name. And when I get to their office, I talk to her and have a lengthy conversation with her while I'm waiting for the other people to come. And so I think that that's the thing, is when you're identifying people and calling them out by name. I think that's when I used to teach college, I would spend 20 minutes, and like, it was a small class. It was probably 30 people. 31 was, I think, the most I ever had. And so I would learn their names within the first 30 to 40 minutes. And so I wish I could do this now. I'm not as good, but
Wow.
like, and I would remember their names. Like, that's just what I do. And it's because I wanted every single one of them to know I know them, I know who they are, and I appreciate them being in my class. And so, like, when you know the people, that's where it matters too. Because have you ever watched the movies or anything that they call the person a different name and they've been working with them for years? Like, it really does make a difference that people, they tend to perform better for you when they know that you care.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us what you do for your work so that our audience knows.
So I'm actually really starting out full steam now on my coaching business, because I've been running it as a side hustle for many years, but now I'm really going all in. So I run a podcast called Play It by Your Rules. So there I already try to inspire people, share stories, give some practical advice, and encourage people to take action. So for listeners, just if you like this one, check it out. Maybe you like Play It by Your Rules too. At least ambition is to really get people something they can use immediately, or an inspiration or an idea. I am building out a coaching program where I envision to work on a 3 months program for starters. So I'd like to work really on courage, clarity, courage, and confidence. No, it's the other way around. Clarity, confidence, and courage, because I see that often stops us from taking the steps we want to take. And then some sort of follow-up program. And one way how I'm doing it, I'm going to do it, I'm testing it right now, is to get people out of the office and out of their head. So I'm experimenting now with a few approaches. Unfortunately, I'm based in Switzerland. So for listeners, that's perhaps a bit less relevant, at least the workshops. So I'm going to take them climbing to work on courage, like proper climbing, like a climbing wall. I'm going to test a horse-assisted workshop for confidence, where horses are the mirrors to guide. And I have tons of other ideas, but that's the first two ones I'm testing with. Those I might offer separately or integrated with the coaching program. But the coaching program, the idea is really to help people that feel stuck to have a dedicated 3 months time, which is relatively short. I mean, in 3 months, you're not going to change your life. You're not going to find your new calling, but you can get unstuck and you can get clear and build up the courage to start moving.
I love that. And I would be willing, I love Switzerland, to come, especially if it's climbing and horses. And so that's the part, is if you can get people to think about down the road and what's on the other side versus focusing on what happened here and now. Yeah. I think that is a huge jump that people need. And to be able to do something physical to show them that's amazing. It's a great idea.
And to give you a very concrete example, because the whole climbing idea is super, I mean, I had it a week ago because I took my kid on his birthday to a climbing wall. So they did their kid stuff, they were entertained. And during that time, I went climbing with my partner, and I had taken some classes, but I had taken classes where one person secures the other, and that I could deal with. In that center, you have this automized system that stops you from falling, which works. But the thing is, when you let go, there's this very short moment where you feel like you're in free fall, and then it pulls you. Every time I was half the way up, all the way up, I had to literally go like 3, 2, 1, go. I'm okay. And that was so powerful. And then I thought, I'm going to bring people here. I'm going to bring leaders here because, maybe they don't manage to climb all the way up because they didn't have the technical training to do that. But even if you just climb 2-3 meters up and you have to let go, that's a big deal. And when you feel that in your body and you debrief, then you can bring that back into your life or into your office and see how you react in those situations.
I love that you're doing that. That's such a good idea. I'm excited for you.
Me too. Now I just have to find people who want to do it.
You will, because that's something that it makes a huge difference. And honestly, tap into the companies that are sending their people for leadership training. That would be perfect as well. All right. So how would our listeners be able to get a hold of you if they wanted to?
So the first thing, check out the podcast. You can put it in the show notes. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. And I also have a website. It's called meggirombach.com. For people, maybe they also have to check it out, how it's written. But again, LinkedIn, that's the easiest. I mean, all the links are from there. So that's probably the easiest to connect, find out more.
I love that. Well, Meggi, thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for being such a good interviewer, conversationalist.
Yes. Well, listeners, I hope that today was a great golden nugget day as well, as always. For me, it was. I love the leadership. I love the training, and finding your courage and finding your confidence and your clarity are 3 things that are a must, which is the whole purpose of this podcast. So if you're thinking about doing something and you're not sure what to do with the next step, then contact me or Meggi and go out and make it a great day. And if you like this, please subscribe. See you later. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.